Today I'm going to demonstrate a 3-needle bind off. As the name implies, you'll need 3 needles. If you don't have 3 the same size, you can transfer one of the set of stitches to a smaller needle. It won't affect your gauge or your bind off if it's on the stitches you need to bind off. You want to make sure that the needle you're using for your bind off, however, is the same size as what you've been knitting with, or a size larger, if that's your preference. I'm going to do it with a contrasting thread yarn color so you can see how the bind off looks. So to start, I'm going to put my needles together so the right side is facing, because I want a seamless join on my right side. If for some reason you wanted the reverse stockinette side showing, then you'd put them wrong sides together. So whichever side you want to be your finished side should be facing each other, unless you want the bind off to show. And so I'm going to knit together 1 stitch from each needle and take them off. And then I'm going to knit together the next 2 stitches, 1 off each needle. And then, typical bind off, I'm just going to lift that first stitch over the second. And knit together and lift over. Knit together and lift over. And I'm just going to keep repeating these steps for all of my stitches that I want to bind off. As you can see, it's creating a nice chain stitch edging, and I'll be back in a minute to show you how to finish off your bind off. As you can see, I am down to my last few stitches. You may also notice I have an uneven count, 2 on my front and 3 on my back. And that can be easily remedied. If you know that it's there beforehand, you can do this earlier in the row. But you just knit 2 together. 2 from the back and 1 from the front, all at the same time. And lift that last stitch over. And then cut my yarn and feed it through my last loop. And you can see I've got a nice bind off. And if we turn it right side out, you can see the purple yarn, but if you were using the same color, it would be a fairly invisible join. You'd have just a small seam line running across, which makes it wonderful for shoulder seams, purses, anything where you don't want a really bulky seam that you might get from sewing, and you don't want to take the time to do a Kitchener or graft the edges together. It's just a really quick, simple way to get a nice seamed edge. And that's the 3-needle bind off.